Today, we're going to be going over how you can use Dabarqus to create a simple Python chatbot that uses your documents in minutes. What you can see here is the final product that you might come out with. This is a pretty powerful chatbot that can reference lots of different memory banks that I've already created. I have some on healthcare, I have some with recipes, some for some more personal documents, and a email database from Enron. I would say rest in peace, but not really. Now, if you just want to get to this part right here, we do have this chatbot up on our GitHub. The link will be in the description. So, for example, if we look up something here, do you have any case studies relating to migraines? So this is not just regular AI because it's using Ollama 3 from Meta, and it runs through Ollama. We'll get to that in a minute. But it's, in fact, using information from a textbook to try to answer my question. So if I say anything about, do you know anything general about migraines? And yeah, it brings up a lot of information here, and it'll use information supplied by a memory bank. To get there, we're going to need to set some things up. We need to set up a basic chat, RAG, and then put it all together. Handle the basic chat using a large language model, an LLM, something like ChatGPT. We'll be using Meta's Llama 3. We'll also need Gradio, an open source framework for creating chatbot apps in Python. However, LLMs can't read documents by themselves, so we need a tool to supplement them. RAG is the tool we're going to use, and Dabarqus is our all-in-one RAG system. You don't need to understand all of how RAG works. Instead, here's how we'll do it. First, we need to download Dabarqus, so I'm going to go to the GitHub. That link will be in the description, and get from the latest release. We released Dabarqus for a lot of different platforms. For me, I am on Windows, and then I'm going to use this QBlast, which just means that I have an NVIDIA GPU, so it's going to be using my GPU rather than CPU. We'll go ahead and download that. We just have a zip file. I'm going to go ahead and extract this guy. Alright, and then we have this bin folder with everything we need. I'm going to open up my terminal and make sure to open it as an administrator. You need to do this. If you are on Mac or Linux, you're going to need to run these commands as sudo. So I'll go to this folder we just made here, and we are going to run this command. Bark service install. Perfect, the service was installed successfully, and it should be running. So I can test this very quickly by running a health check here. I'm just going to run one on the command line using curl. Perfect, our status is okay. Dabarqus is running. Then we're going to set up Ollama. We're going to use Ollama to set up the LLM part of our app. Just go to ollama.com, click download, and install. It also works on everything. Just make sure it's actually running before we continue. Then it's time to set up our virtual environment in Python. To build our Python chatbot, we're going to need to install some packages. I'm going to set up what's called a virtual environment in Python. That way, we can install packages without interfering with anything else on our machine. Here's how we'll do it. First, we'll create a folder for this project. I'm going to be doing this all in VS Code. Then, we'll set up a virtual environment. You type this command in Windows, and this command on Mac and Linux. And then, we need to actually activate the virtual environment, so we'll type this on Windows, this on Mac, and this on Linux. We need to install 3 packages in particular: Dabarqus, Gradio, and Ollama. We can do this all in one line. On Windows, you'll type this, and on Mac and Linux, you'll type this. Once it's done installing, we're ready to actually use Dabarqus, creating a memory bank. We need to take the documents that we want to use in our chatbot and put them into what's called a memory bank. Creating a memory bank is pretty easy, and there's 2 ways you can do it. The easiest way is to just go through our web UI. You just come over to memory storage, click new memory bank, and then you put in where the memory bank is supposed to be with the memory bank name. There are some other settings here that you don't need to worry about, but we create memory bank. And here we are. Store the documents you need so that you can reference it later. The second way is to just go through Python like we'll be doing for the actual chatbot. So I made this little Python app here that you can download. It's very simple. You put in the name of the memory bank, you put in the folder that it's pulling from, you have to give the path on your actual machine, and it will create a memory bank with that name and update you on progress. So on here I just need to go say Python store files, which is the name of this Python file. Our memory bank is a recipe book, so I'm going to call this my new recipe book. And then we have to set the input path, so where the PDFs are actually going to be. If we look here in this project, I have recipes here to go in this recipe book. So I'm going to specify the whole path, not just the relative path, if you know what I'm talking about. All right. Recipes. You see it gave us some progress updates, and boom, we're done. So if I look on here, boom, my new recipe book is now stored. Okay, that was a lot of setup, but let's get into what we're actually doing today. Let's go to that Python project we had set up earlier. To build this chatbot, we needed Dabarqus, which we installed. We also needed one other thing, Gradio. So to get Gradio set up, we're first going to go ahead and import Gradio as GR, and we're going to add right onto here a Gradio window. So Gradio works where you can build blocks here. I'm just going to go here and show you a very basic Gradio block, and then I can explain a little bit better what's going on. Okay, so if we run this here, we will see that it says we're running on a local URL. So if I click that and open this up in my browser, what I will get is this. Gradio lets us make this text box and this button here pretty easily, because we're going to use this to actually build the UI. So we actually have something to type into, because Dabarqus does not have a UI built in. The last piece that we need is going to be Ollama. And we can do a quick check of Ollama as well. To test Ollama, we are going to print out a very simple Ollama text generation. So we're going to use Ollama 3, because Ollama 3 is a great model. That's our AI, and then we're going to prompt it with hello. Very basic. And if we go ahead and run this, boom. So you see, it's given us this response and some more info. We're probably not going to end up needing all this when we use this in practice, but I wanted to show you how to get to Ollama here, and we now have all of our building blocks. We have Dabarqus, we have Gradio, and we have Ollama. Okay, so we went over the basics here with Dabarqus and Gradio and Ollama. Now I've gone ahead and added the actual code that we need for the project, and we're going to walk through this step by step. We're going to be using this memory bank that we created earlier. So whatever your memory bank name is, you're going to need to use that. So we use this blocks right here, titled Dabarqus. It's going to be the name of the page in your actual browser. But inside of that, we've added some new code. We've created a chatbot. That's very important. That's going to actually give us our box for where the chat is happening, so you can see what you typed and then what the AI is typing back to you. Thankfully, Gradio takes care of a lot of that annoying stuff for us, where if we just say this, it's going to give us a box to show the chat. It's going to automatically put the chat information in there, and it also saves your chat history, which is very helpful. So after that, we are going to create a row. I'm going to run this real quick. I'll explain everything here, but I want to show you what it means by row here, because you're basically building this layout by text. So when you run this file and it runs demo.launch for Gradio, it will give you a link to where it is hosting this on your machine. So you see the title is Dabarqus. That's what we put here in our title field here. And it gives us a chatbot. And then this is the row that we created. We created a row which has a message box and a submit button. And you see we have a message box and a submit button. So our message box, we're saying is going to be 7 lines long. The label we put on here is enter your prompt here. You see that's the label that goes up top. And then I just gave it a class of a large text input. That's not super necessary, but I just want to specify that. And then we have a submit button, which has a label on it of chat. Bam. Then we need to define a user submit function. So when the user actually submits a message, it's going to return the message that the user sent, and then the existing chat history with the new message added on to the end. That's pretty helpful because we can actually keep track of the history and use that in further chats if we wanted to. There's only one more line here in the actual Gradio function where we are going to say what happens when you click the submit button. You can just copy and paste this. It'll be probably easier. When they click the submit button, we will use the submit function that we defined here. We will pass in the information from our chat box and the history from our chatbot. And then we will pass this over to our chat function, which is something that we're going to go over in just a second. So in our chat function, we are going to give it the message box information. So what actually got typed in the message bot, we're going to give it the chatbot history, and we are going to give it the memory bank, this gr state memory bank. That's just how it references this memory bank function that we set right there. And then the output is going to go back to the chatbot, so it's going to actually go into the chatbot body. In practice, this will work something like this. Give me a sandwich recipe. Chat. You see it actually fills in into the chatbot. Human says this, and then the AI says this. In our chat function, this is actually pretty straightforward. We are going to do two main things. We are first going to query Dabarqus, and then we are going to send that information over to Ollama to be our LLM engine. So, retrieve data equals retrieve data with the message and the memory bank that we're pulling the message out of. So, this function is very simple. We are going to use the Dabarqus SDK and query semantic search. So this is going to do a semantic search into the memory bank that we created earlier and give us back the top 3 results based on the prompt that the user gives us. This will be some nicely formatted JSON, and so we can pass this directly into the LLM. So what I've done here is I've created this is a very simple prompt to the LLM. We pass in this information we got from Dabarqus, and then we just tell it at the end to use this information from your database to solve the user's original query. And we pass in what the original query is. And then from Ollama, we are going to generate a response. So I did this as a streaming response so we can do it a little more smoothly. Basically, we will say Ollama chat. We let the Ollama know who it is, that it's the system prompt. It is a helpful assistant. You can customize this to get even better results, but it works fine as it is. And then we tell it, okay, the user said this, and we give it this full prompt. And then we end up pulling out every chunk from this stream. We save it into a response, and we then end up returning that response along with the history, so we can keep track of the message history going forward. All that works out to exactly what I was showing here. So I'll open this up again, and I will say, give me a sandwich recipe. And hit chat. And it will go ahead and pull out this sandwich recipe. So what's very cool about this and showing the power of Dabarqus along with an LLM is that the AI was able to nicely format a recipe in a way that's human readable. What actually ended up coming back to the AI, I can show you if we go over here. Since we are already debugging, I'm going to go ahead and put a breakpoint right here, right? So if I go ahead and ask the same thing again, what we can see came back from retrieve data is our 3 chunks. So this is 3 different recipes we stored from our recipe database. There is this garlic cheese bread spread. There's this Wolfpack pork sandwich, which is the one that actually fits the query. And then there's some buttered noodles. This, as you can see, this Wolfpack sandwich is a little bit hard to read. It's a long string with a lot of information in it, formatted nicely in JSON. But the LLM is actually quite good at looking at that JSON and giving us something that is very human readable. So it goes ahead and grabs out all these fields and then gives you the recipe in a way that's easy to be read. You can do this with a lot of different things. This is just a quick way to showcase the power of Dabarqus. So this is going to be available, a link in the description. There's a much more fully featured version of this chatbot that you're going to be able to also see a link at in the description. I just didn't want to walk you through the code because for reference, it's a little bit longer. But this shows off just some of the more full capabilities of what Dabarqus is capable of. So I will grab a different memory bank here that I can just select from a drop-down list. Let's look at our emails database and ask it, do you have an email from John? You see here, I can also select from all the models that I already have downloaded from Ollama. And I send this message here. And it will pull out some email information. Now, it says something weird up top here because I also have set up in here, it's a lot more advanced. You can set your actual prompt template here. So in this case, we're saying your recipe catalog. If I were to change this to be email database, save that. And then I were to ask this again. And so then it will give us an email that is to John based on the information that we had here, pulling out of that database. There's a whole lot here, clear chat, different options. But this shows you just how powerful the Dabarqus SDK is and how much you can do with RAG that's easy. Because to go back to our original example, the RAG portion of this app is 4 lines, and you didn't have to do much of anything. It's much more complicated to set up your LLM chatbot and to set up Gradio than it is to actually do RAG, which is not the case if we were to do this using any other framework. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. If it has, go ahead and give us a like. Leave a comment down below. We'll see you later.